like the cold and influenza are caused by viruses, and these work. Viruses are basically, non-living particles or just shells of protein with DNA or RNA on the inside. And these are not cells. They're not even living things. They're shells, not cells. So you can't kill them with antibiotics because antibiotics were meant to destroy cells, right? And pretty much the only thing these things do is they, one, sit there, and two, they reproduce. And the way they do that is they land on a cell, they go into the cell, they inject DNA into the cell. DNA is what tells, DNA or RNA, and genetic material is what tells a cell what it needs to do with its life. And unlike you, a cell can't say, don't tell me how to live my life. So it makes more and more viruses until it makes too many, and it explodes, and the cell dies, and all those viruses go and do their thing with all the other cells, the exact same thing that just happened to this cell. And with bacteria, these actually are cells with actual cell walls and organelles and all of that. So antibiotics can kill these because the way antibiotics work is they destroy cell walls and other things that disrupt other processes that cells need to do, like their metabolism and stuff like that. So some single cellular organisms like malaria, which is a protist, not a bacteria, by the way, for example, can go into your cells and destroy them. But for the ones that don't destroy your cell, that don't go into your cells to destroy them, what they do is they either consume stuff that your body needs, or they produce stuff that you don't want inside your body, and that's how it would make you sick without actually going in and destroying your cells. So just to put it into perspective, viruses are really small, and bacteria are actually also really small, but not as small as viruses. And your body cells are actually pretty big compared to these. And that was basically the review of viruses and bacteria in a nutshell. Did all of that make sense? Did any of it not? Yeah, did all of that make sense? Did any of it not make sense? Okay.
Where do protists come in this?
Protists? Well, protists are also single cell organisms, and they also, some of them do also cause diseases, like the one that causes malaria, for example.
What's the difference between a yeast and a protist?
Yeast and a protist? A yeast is a type of protist, isn't it? Because...
What is it? What's a yeast?
A protist.
Why'd you just ask me that?
No, what's it?
Because that's what he does.
Oh, okay. All right.
Is it a protist? Was that right?
No, it's not. Yeah.
Oh.
It's a fungus.
Wait, actually? I thought it was
Yeast is
a
fungus.
So when we
It was in your packet.
But it wasn't the fungus like protist. It was under the fungus like
Even
protist.
she wrote it down.
I just looked for the
Basically,
answers.
what happens is you're talking about
Hey, I didn't talk
if
about it.
you are cured of the cold, will that same cold come back, right? Is that what you're asking? So the thing with something like that is once you've gotten the disease, your body produces a lot of antibodies, which you will actually cover in a later slide. And those antibodies are will kind of alert your immune system and prevent you from getting that same strain of the cold again. Does that make sense? Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Did you show him Ebola?
Oh my god.
Okay. So
It looks like his
we
finger.
got E. coli here, a red blood cell here. Now, most viruses are really super teeny tiny. All right, like polio here, rhinovirus, which causes common cold. All right, rabies is over here. All right,
Rabies?
but this is Ebola. Ebola is actually relatively large for viruses. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about the body's defenses today. All right. So the body has three main lines of defense, three main groups. First are non-specific defenses. The second is the innate immune response. And then the last line of defenses are adaptive immune response. So we're going to go through these things today. All right. So our non-specific defenses are non-specific in that they don't really, they're not looking at a single type of virus or a single type of bacteria or protist or fungi. It's just everything that isn't you should not be there, all right? And so that's all it cares about, all right? So, those are things like skin, your mucus, cilia, phagocytes. All right. So the role of skin. So your skin is your first line and biggest major line of defense. It's keeping what's supposed to be in, and it's keeping all the stuff that's not supposed to be there out. Now, your skin cells, the top of your skin is, here, I'll take this kid because he deserves it. All right, I just gave him about maybe 2,000-3,000 skin cells there. All right.
You want something?
Yeah. There you go. All right, now, so every time you rub your hands, you scratch yourself, all that kind of stuff, moving, the clothing moving on your body, you are slewing off skin cells, dead skin cells. All right, they're coming off. Really? Don't you touch him enough?
Oh.
Slewing off dead skin cells all the time. Now this is important because our bodies are a treasure trove of bacteria. All right, there is bacteria, our bacteria colonies on our bodies all the time, from the moment we are born and throughout our entire lives. All right, all the way to death. Now you can shower all you want and scrub and wash, and the bacteria is not going to go away. All right, you're not going to get rid of all of it. All right. Now, the fact that our skin cells come off is good, though, and this is because if it didn't come off, these bacterial colonies could rage out of control. All right. So essentially, what happens is each time one of those skin cells comes off, it takes the bacteria with it. So it helps to control the bacterial populations on your skin. Now, we also produce sweat and some oils from our skin, and these have some antimicrobial properties and even some antibiotic properties to them, right? These substances that we produce, right? And they also help to keep some of that flowing away and make it a little easier to, when we clean up, to get rid of excess bacteria. But what's important to understand that all this bacteria isn't necessarily bad, right? It's good to have this bacteria on us because many of the strains of bacteria that live on us actually are involved in consuming bad bacteria or other pathogens that we may encounter. So they actually do provide some level of protection. So you don't want to be sterile, all right? It's good to have some of this bacteria on you, okay? And it's in us as well in our digestion. We'll talk about that. All right, so the role of mucus and cilia. So mucus itself, so the mucus you produce in your lungs and in your nasal passages, that has antimicrobial properties. It has enzymes that are going to help to destroy some microbes, all right? Help to break them down or start breaking them down. Right? And it's sticky, right? The mucus is very sticky. Now, it is non-specific because all the stuff, essentially, that you're inhaling is going to get trapped in there. So that's pollen, it's viruses that are airborne bacteria, it's, why is my brain not working? Fungal spores, things like that, all right? So there's all kinds, and then dust and all kinds of other stuff, all right? You don't want all of that accumulating in your lungs, right? So the mucus is going to trap it, and then you've got cilia that's going to keep it moving, all right? It's going to move it up, and you're going to swallow most of it, all right? So you swallow all this throughout your life.
So you swallow mucus?
Constantly. You don't even think about it.
Blech.
You sleep, you do it all night,
Oh God.
you do it all day.
I bet you swallow more mucus than you think.
All right. So that mucus is collecting all that stuff. Now, when you swallow it, it just goes to your stomach, and most everything gets destroyed by the hydrochloric acid environment. So it's good. All right. So it's worked for us since forever. So
Deer?
hopefully it's gone. Back. All right, before I go to phagocytes, there's one more thing that's not on this slide that is a non-specific defense, and it has to do with your digestive system. Now, when your digestive system, Raj, detects something that is not right, doesn't seem right to it, it's going to try to get rid of it. And we have two mechanisms for this. What? Barfing, yes, vomiting. All right, so vomiting is the first mechanism. So, and the second mechanism is?
Cough.
No, not poo-poo.
Cough.
It has a special name.
Diarrhea.
Yes, diarrhea. So, essentially what happens here is you're going to just vomit, all right? Even though there's stuff in whatever you ate that you need, your body senses that something's not quite right. There might be something in there that's not supposed to be there. So that defense is just get rid of it, right? So you're going to vomit it out, or you're going to loosen your bowels and just let everything go out the other way, all right? Just get rid of it. Clean it all out so that there's less of it, right? And so those are also non-specific defenses. Right? So you don't always throw up when you're sick, you don't always have diarrhea, but sometimes you do, right? There's other reasons for diarrhea we'll talk about a little later when we do antibiotics. Yes?
I don't know.
What is that the other side? What is that the other side?
Well, I haven't even started talking about it.
Oh.
Alright, so we got phagocytes. So these are just white blood cells. Alright, now there are many different kinds of white blood cells. We even discovered a new one last year, I think it was, or year before last, if I remember right. I can't remember what it was called. But anyways, you are definitely not responsible for memorizing all of them. Right?
Yeah.
So don't bother trying to list them all and memorize them all. We're just going to lump them pretty much all together. We'll talk about phagocytes, we'll talk about macrophages, they're the same group. Right? Now, these guys are responsible for destroying invaders, so destroying microbes, or cleaning up damaged body cells. So they're like the garbage men and the police combined. Right? So they're going around checking to make sure that it's you. Everything they encounter is you. If it isn't, they're going to engulf it. If it's dead you, they're going to engulf it. Right? So they're just they're cleaning things up. Now, these guys are attracted by, which we're going to talk about next, the inflammatory response, in that when histamines get released in the inflammatory response, they go towards the concentration of them. So they will move towards where these histamines are, and that way they can encounter any microbes that may have gotten in. All right, so inflammation. So inflammation is signaled by mast cells. These are specialized cells, and they contain histamine in vacuoles, and if they are pierced or there is a rupture close by to them, they will release histamine into that area. Now what happens is histamine causes blood vessels to become leaky. So nearby blood vessels will, instead of having the vessel walls close together, the cells of the vessel wall will start to move slightly apart. So there'll be gaps in between them. And then the fluid, not the blood, but the plasma and water and fluid that's in the blood is going to move out into the surrounding area. And that gap also allows the phagocytes to squeeze through, and they can move into the area and just do their cleanup, all right? And so by having this increase of fluid, you can dilute any toxins that are in there, and you also get a warm sensation, right? If you've ever been cut or injured, you'll notice that it kind of gets warm, and that's because you've got a lot of fluid and movement and activity going on where usually nothing's happening. So it's that's the sensation we feel, and it does get warm. Yes.
So like if you yourself to the head,
Why would you do that?
We have to send you to the counselor.
but so and then is that like you commit to that?
Yeah, because you just broke a bunch of cells. Yeah. All right. So again, we got this is like a splinter coming in here. Ow! All right. Splinter comes in. We got some mast cells. They're going to release histamine. All right. That histamine is going to reach the blood vessel nearby, if you look on this slide, you've got some gaps open up inside here, and so fluid can then move into this space through these gaps, right? And then these are phagocytes that are going to move through, and they're going to start to engulf some of these microbes that got in. They'll start to clean up any damaged cells that are inside here while the skin begins to repair itself. Huh? Right. Now, fever is something interesting. Now, it is a defense mechanism that we say may destroy microbes, and it may help fight viral infections by increasing a substance called interferon being produced. Now, interferon is a chemical that cells can produce when they are infected with a virus, and it kind of is an alert system for neighboring cells that something's wrong. And it also does exactly what's kind of its name. It interferes with viral replication. And what it does is it slows down the cell's processes in the smooth ER and Golgi so that it slows down how fast you are making these proteins so that it can buy time. All right. Now, the reason why I say it may destroy microbes is that recent research has shown that most of the microbes that we are exposed to today do not react to fever at all. Now, way back when we were probably swinging from the trees or whatever, fever probably worked very well, right? Somehow this fever mechanism showed up and we kept it in our species, all right? It was probably extremely effective at the time. But over the ages, as we've lived with these microbes, they also have adapted to the fever response, and so they don't generally respond. Right? There are some which may still respond, but not really. But there is a secondary response to fever that does help us when we are sick, and that is if you don't get feverish, you will tend to keep running around and doing your life and all kinds of things, right? And you're using energy to do your life activities instead of conserving that energy to fight the illness, right? So what fever does for us is it raises our body temperatures and interferes with how our own enzymes work in our bodies. And this acts to make us feel sick. Yeah, you feel tired, weak, achy, all that kind of stuff, because your actual body functions are not normal. So it slows you down so that you rest and conserve your energy for fighting off the pathogen. Right? All right, so we've talked about non-specific defenses. So those things that we've talked about, those don't care what it is that you have. There's something wrong, we're responding to it. Okay? Well, now we're going to start talking about specific defenses. Now, in specific defenses, we're looking at individual species of microbes. All right, so one kind of microbe, and that's it. If there's a new one that comes in, then we've got to address that separately. So, a different influenza strain, we've got to start all over again. Now, what's nice about our specific defenses in our immune system is that it forms a chemical memory of that invading microbe, and that then, if you are exposed to that microbe again in the future, you don't have to go through as many hoops to fight it. You have a memory of what it was, so you can respond to it much more rapidly. Okay? And oftentimes, you never even know you're sick. Sometimes you'll feel like you're getting sick, and then nothing happens. You'll like have a couple hours of, oh, I think I'm coming down with something, and then you'll be like, oh, I'm fine, nothing happened. That's actually, your body is probably fighting something that you had many years back. It's just going to take a little while to get going there. Okay. All right. So there are a few major things that we need to know about in specific immunity. The first is the macrophage. Then there are T cells. T cells come in three main flavors: the helper T cell, the cytotoxic T cell, and memory T cells. There are B cells, and they come in two flavors: plasma or memory. And then there are antibodies. antibodies are just a protein that we produce in our B cells, and they are used to tag and destroy invasive microbes. So the antibody is this Y structure here. And at the ends of it here, there are these little regions. And these can be created to match up to antigens on the microbe. Now, all the antigen is usually a marker protein or protein structure that is on the microbe. Right? So that when the antibody goes along, that protein structure is going to fit in with this region here like a key into a lock, right? Into a keyhole, right? But the difference is that once this antigen goes in here, it's locked in place, right? It won't, this region will not let go of it, right? So what that effect is that this antibody now marks this pathogen, right, by attaching to that antigen. Right. So what happens is the antibodies flow through the bloodstream, right, through the body, and if they encounter an antigen, they're going to attach to it. If it's on a microbe, that's great, right? Now, you can get many antibodies attaching to a microbe, but once they are attached to it, what happens is when the macrophages or other white blood cells come along, if they see an antibody attached to a microbe, they don't waste any time. They immediately engulf it. Right? They don't bother checking, waiting around, anything like that. They just take it right in and kill it, right, and destroy it.
Do they detect antibodies?
Yeah, antibiotics are a nice little dipping sauce.
Barbecue sauce.
Yeah. All right. So antibodies are going to bind to the antigens. Now, all right. So I mentioned this before in the past. Cells of the immune system recognize self-proteins. So these are your marker proteins that say it's me, versus not self-proteins. So these are proteins that your body doesn't make. Right? So these are proteins that are being made by the virus, or proteins found in bacteria, or protists, or fungal proteins. Now, if an antigen that is not yours is encountered by a macrophage, it's going to bring that protein to a helper T cell for identification. So what actually happens is the macrophage is going along, checking everything as it goes along to make sure that it's you. When it gets to something that isn't you, it's going to envelop it, and it actually breaks it apart into different pieces. And then it takes those pieces and it presents them. It pushes them out to the surface of the cell, and those pieces are antigens, right? They become antigens. So all the different pieces of the microbe are the antigens, right? And so this is now called an antigen presenting cell, right? So that macrophage goes around and tries to find a helper T cell to present these antigens. And the helper T cell is like a check.